G. Come and hear a story with me. Love who you want to be, who you are. Learn these lessons and we'll go far. It's story time. Story time. Story time with Mama G. Hello, Mama G here. Now, before we go any further, don't forget that you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and you can also follow me at Mama G Stories on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you do so you don't miss out on any of my wonderful stories and glorious adventures. But without any further ado, I know precisely why you're here, and it's because you want to find out what happens in part 2 of Mermaid's Gift by Ronesa Aveela with illustrations by Nelinda. Well, sit back, relax, and enjoy. The wind bit into Nick's cheek by the time he neared the water. A seagull sitting on a post squawked, alerting a colony of girls huddled at the end of the pier. They flew over the roiling ocean, scolding him for disturbing their rest. Nick panted as he bent over, putting his hands on his knees while he caught his breath. Waves churned high, battering the boats moored like a row of gulls. His father's slip was empty. Streaks of lightning flashed in the dense fog far out to sea. "Dad, where are you?" The crashing waves and wind swallowed his voice. Nick removed the compass from his pocket. "Mum said you're magical. Show me how to save my dad and get him home." He read the words from the back aloud. "Nothing is more precious than life." The brass arrow jumped between north and south like a fish trying to find its way home. Nick banged it against his palms and then tried again. The arrow still twirled around. "Oh, man, it's broken." Shivering from the cold, Nick decided to return home so his mother wouldn't worry. He pocketed the compass and took a few steps down the pier. Something splashed in the water behind him. He turned around, hoping his father's boat had returned. The slip remained empty. Another splash came from the side of the pier. It was too cold and stormy for a person to be swimming. Maybe a seal had been washed close to shore. As Nick stared into the darkness, a woman's head appeared out of the water. A crown of shells, pearls and tiny starfish adorned her hair. She grasped the wooden platform with her milky white hands. Green and blue fins cascaded from her wrist to her elbow. It must be a costume, Nick thought. "Are you okay?" He went closer and looked over the edge of the pier. She swished her long red hair to the side, removed seaweed from her shoulders and smiled at him, showing her pearly teeth. The woman's head disappeared beneath the water, and another splash sounded behind him. He twirled around as a green and blue fishtail dipped below the surface. Icy drops of water splashed his face. He rubbed them away and glanced where the tail had sunk beneath the water. The woman rose and smiled at him again. "Who are you?" he spluttered while his heart raced. "Why are you in the water?" "I'm a rusalka, a mermaid. The ocean's my home." Nick rubbed his eyes. He must be dreaming. When he looked again, the woman still clung to the edge of the pier. "Mermaid? Well, they're only in fairy tales." She shook her head, still smiling. "Mermaids have existed for thousands of years." "I think you bought one of those fake tales from the internet." The woman flipped her tail. "Touch it if you want. It's real." Nick kneeled on the pier and reached out his hand. He hesitated over the scales. They looked real, but couldn't be. Could they? He lowered his fingertips and skimmed the surface. Gasping, he quickly drew his hand away, clutching it to his chest as if burnt. "That's not a costume. They're rough and slimy," he said. The mermaid sneered. "Now, do you believe me?" Maybe." Nick bit his lower lip. "Who are you?" "My name is Assyria. I'm..." "Who?" Nick opened his eyes wide. "My grandfather repeated that name when he was rescued. Assyria laughed, the sound like a symphony of tiny bells. He was talking about me. How's that possible? Nick looked at her closer. You're too young. That happened 40 years ago. I'm 100, the youngest of 7 sisters. Nick hit the side of his head. Water must have clogged his ears. Why did you help my grandfather? I thought mermaids drowned humans. She swayed, twirling a tendril of hair. My sisters wanted to drown him, but I loved him. He was such a handsome man and strong. I watched him every time he went out to sea. I disappointed my sisters by finding him a raft for him to float on. Why are you here now? Did you come back for him? He's in heaven. No, I came back because you called me. I didn't. Nick gulped a lump in his throat. How could I have? Well, I didn't know you existed. You called me with a compass. I came to fulfill a vow, Nick. He leaped back, almost falling into the water on the opposite side. How do you know who I am? I always know the name of the person carrying the compass, Assyria said. Don't be afraid. I'm here to help you. What is it you desire? Catching his breath, Nick stared at her. Could she really help? Can you tell me where my father's fishing boat is? He asked, his voice trembling. He hasn't come home, and my family's worried. Assyria dove into the ocean, sending a spray of water onto the already soaked pier. Don't leave! Nick peered into the dark, swirling eddies. You said you'd help. For a long time, he stared at the spot where she had disappeared. Resigned that she wasn't coming back, he shuffled down the pier with his shoulders hunched. Nick! Assyria called. I've returned! He whipped around. The mermaid sat on the edge of the pier, splashing her tail in the water. She held a large sea snail shell in her hand. I can call my sisters with Trident's trumpet. She pointed to the shell. They'll search the seas for the boat and guide it to shore. But you must give me something valuable in return. I don't have money with me. But I can go home and get some from my mother. You humans think you can buy everything with money. Assyria's eyes saddened. It has no value in my world. I desire something that's precious to you. The compass. Nick stuck his hand in his pocket and fumbled with his mother's gift. I can't give you that. Anything but the compass. It belonged to my grandfather. You can have my basketball trophy or a signed poster of Michael Jordan or my ship in the bottle. It must be the compass. Assyria held out her hand. It was a gift from me to your grandfather and was meant to be used only once. Now you must return it. How do I know you gave it to him? Nick clutched the compass. Assyria didn't withdraw her hand. Give it to me and I'll show you. The wind picked up, blowing ice particles against Nick's face, and waves swelled around him. The ocean seemed angry. Had Assyria done that? He ran his thumb over the compass cover. I promised my mother I'd guard it with my life. She'll be upset if I give it to you. I have to keep my promise. Is it more important than your father's life? Assyria asked before she slid off the pier and slipped into the water. Nick ran to where she had sat and dropped to his knees, splashing his hand in the water. Come back! You can have it! Green, blue and red streaks rippled through the waves as Assyria swam back. Her green eyes sparkling, she pulled herself onto the pier next to Nick. The compass, please. She stretched her hand toward him. With a racing heart, Nick pulled the compass from his pocket and held it toward her in his palm. The touch of her long, sharp fingernails against his skin made him shiver. Assyria turned the compass around and flicked one of the aquamarine crystals from the mermaid's eye. A shiny tear formed in her own eye. These crystals are tears I shed for your grandfather. I offered him eternity, but he wouldn't stay with me. She heaved a sigh. He said another had captured his heart, and his love waited for him at home. My tears in the compass protected him. Those are your tears. Nick looked at her in wonder. Yes. Now that I have the compass again, I am free to shed more. She wiped away the tear, and it dropped to the pier, forming a crystal again. Now, to uphold my promise, Assyria lifted the conch to her lips and blew. It made a noise like a hissing cat. She held it to her ears, listening. My sisters know where your father's boat is. Is he okay? Nick held his breath. Yes. The storm disabled their navigation equipment, and because of the fog, they couldn't find their way to shore. My sisters will guide the men home. She picked up the dropped tear and placed it onto Nick's palm. Remember me. Giving Nick one last smile, she dove into the icy black water. Her fishtail flashed above the waves as if in farewell, then disappeared. Nick blinked twice. What just happened? Was it real? He patted his pocket where he had put the compass. It was gone. He squeezed his hand tight and felt an object there. The mermaid tear Assyria had given him. What was he going to tell his mother? He stared out toward the ocean, waiting for his father's safe return. And I think we shall leave it there for a part 3. So make sure you've subscribed to my YouTube channel so you can find out what happens in The Mermaid's Gift. Bye! It's story time with Mama G. Come and hear a story with me. Love who you want to be, who you are. Learn these lessons and we'll go far. It's story time. Story time. Story time with Mama.